Meow. No. No. Can I say that? Oh, I was going to come this side. I like you on this side. Meow. I don't see what you're putting. Yeah. Did we pack my brick? Is it packed? No. Well, I don't mind. Tea? I need my tea. Why, hello.
It's a Katie coming in from the left side.
Would you like me to serenade you with my piano playing?
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Genuinely, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes!
Do it.
What the fuck kind of question is that? Yes!
and D is out of tune.
That was red.
That's my favorite Beethoven. Fuck yeah!
I have so much awe for people who can figure out piano because to me all of the keys look identical all of the time. It's so bewildering.
Do you have keyboard blindness as well as face blindness?
Apparently so, yeah. I'm like, okay, there's the white keys and black keys, but oh no, not that one. Okay, cool. You got 3 sets of black keys, and no, wait, you got 2, and then 3, and then, and like, it doesn't. Okay, if you have a guitar, right? Like, you know, each string has like a basic. That's the sound that it's going to be. But all of the keys look identical on a keyboard.
Yeah, I find guitar is much more confusing.
But it's a grid.
See, I feel like
Not a regular grid.
Okay,
that's true. I feel like because I'm used to guitar, I think guitar is easier, but theoretically piano should be easier because it's just pressing buttons, right?
No, it's sorcery.
And the thing about piano is all you need to do is like press buttons. You don't need to press buttons with one hand and do something else with your other hand.
No, but you press them at different, like, you know, you press them hard or you press them soft. Press it hard.
Okay.
Pedals.
Oh, there are feet involved. Love it when there are feet involved.
But you can't press it too soft, otherwise it doesn't play. It's like...
I guess, okay, here's the thing that fucks me up though, because I have tried to learn it before. But like, to me, if you're playing guitar, right, and you're making a chord, there's a very big difference between like that shape and like that shape. But on a piano, everything is just varying degrees of that.
I've heard that there's a lot of stretching with some bits. Some
It
impossible
happens with big
stretches.
hands.
Is that Rachmaninoff?
Oh, Rachmaninoff had massive hands. He could stretch like an octave and a half.
That's fucking wild.
Some people like strap special things onto their fingers to play Rachmaninoff.
Like
That
extra
sounds-
fingers, like claw grabbers?
Like,
Yeah, a bit like
you know
that.
those plastic hands that
Yes.
that
I'll go get-
Megan got us that can like just extend your finger by a little bit. Probably
Abby
that.
looks terrified.
You sound like sex toys.
Consider
mean-
though, the worst instrument, the violin, is like a guitar but has no frets on it.
No fucking fret.
Yeah.
Why do I have this thing? Why did
It only has 4 strings. Like, and you usually only play one note at a time rather than having to play like.
But it's not even tuned like a bass. What the fuck?
That is the
Look,
typical...
I looked at viola tuning this week and I'm like, that's fucking wild. None of that.
That
Honestly,
is such a guitarist response. Like, there are 2 tunings, guitar tuning and bass tuning.
There's also ukulele tuning.
Mhm.
No,
But it
I
has the
don't, I
same-
don't acknowledge it.
What? You don't acknowledge the ukulele? Do you
I
play
am afraid
guitar?
of it. Huh?
Do you play guitar? No. Okay, cool. If you play guitar, then you would be able to play the ukulele. It's very simple.
Really?
Yeah, it's not the same key, but you can use the same chord shapes with your left hand. And I think that, yeah, I don't know exactly what the association is, but like if
kind
you,
of upside down.
it's not upside. What the fuck?
No?
No,
All right.
it's just the 4. It's the same association with the 4 bottom strings of a guitar, the 4 highest strings of a guitar, right? You can just
Oh.
put on the D, and then that's like, I don't know, a fucking C or a G in a
Yeah.
ukulele.
That's the hard bit. You have to remap what chord is what in your head, and it's like, ah.
Come on, just take a ukulele and then get like a
Take
cap
your
and a
ukulele.
and then make your fingers really small, and then yeah, you do it.
Yeah.
You
No, I
just
go.
play the piano where all the notes are the same all the time.
Where's my...
Yeah.
I don't know.
Any instrument that involves a bow though just weirds me the fuck out. Like conceptually, you're rubbing a string on
Rubbing.
30 more strings. That's it. That's the
Love a bit of string on string.
wild. Like I get that someone would like the thought would occur to someone of like, I hit this thing and it went bong, right?
Mm.
But like,
Bong.
yeah. But,
Hit that bong.
Question.
Mhm.
Also, Hi, everybody. Speaking of bowed instruments, is there such a thing as an instrument that has where you play it with a bow where you just kind of hold the strings in both hands rather than it being like a static fixed bow with a kind of spine, like a rib of wood? I'm like imagining kind of strings going vertically. It would probably not be fretted, I guess, but that where you would kind of play it by like kind of using both hands to kind of drag. What?
Like garroting it or flossing it.
Kind of, yeah. And like kind of so that you could kind of hit more than one string at once, and you would be able to like move the bow up and down the strings. Like, is that a thing?
I think you'd need like some wild kind of grip strength to just get the tension on the bow.
Yeah.
But theoretically, I guess.
Also, you wouldn't have a spare hand to like make the strings be different notes.
That's what I was thinking. Like, I don't know if there is a way, if there is like, but
you could
yeah,
have
I don't know.
pedals. You could have
This
pedals
isn't
to change the
something
tuning.
that, like,
Or just a fuck ton of strings.
But, you know,
Or
I feel
both,
like
like a harp.
it's been a while since we've had a new stringed instrument, right? It's time for something new to break onto the scene.
Like
I call it guitar
you're talking about basically like a harp, but if each of the strings of the harp had like a little bow in between them that you could go.
Oh, so it's like a harp but a grid, kind of a three-dimensional grid. Yeah, Harp 2, the sequel to Harp.
Okay, wait, but on top of that, would you need like something to control each tiny bow? Like, how would you pull each bow? Also, hi, Kate, your hair looks so good.
An elaborate system of
Hi, Kate. Hold on, sorry, everybody. Hi, Kate. I'm done. I'm cool. We can continue talking now.
Is this like robot instrument level though? If you have a tiny little bow for every single string of a tiny or medium harp, normal harp, like you can't do those all yourself, surely.
Must be, I guess. What if it was like a fractal situation where for each string of each tiny bow had its own tiny bow on it?
See, I was thinking there would be like maybe a ring at the end of each bow, and you could like feed your fingers in to pull them up for chords.
Ooh, I like that idea, and most importantly, I like that incredibly like delicate, evocative hand gesture you just made to describe it. That was very nice.
I think
That was some theremin shit.
I think
Yeah.
we reinvented. There's no joke in one of my favorite books, The Hydrogen Sonata. It's there's a
Wait.
character.
Is that real? Is that
Yeah.
real?
That's
there-
cool.
So there's a character who her like life's ambition kind of has been to learn to perform a piece of music that was written specifically for an instrument that didn't exist at the time and had to be built to accommodate this fucking composition, which is basically an incredibly elaborate shitpost. And it's like a three-dimensional harp with like electronic elements and stuff and like different modalities. And yeah, she's basically spent 40 years of her life just trying to work on this one passage.
She has like
It's not even
extra-
a nice song, it's just complicated.
I'm gonna go.
It has, like,
watch
extra
the movies,
arms,
don't
right?
start without us.
Well, wait, so
like extra arms surgically added to her so she can play this instrument.
In all seriousness, yes.
And this is in a book.
Yes.
This
It's,
isn't
Ian
like a
Banks.
friend of yours.
No. It's Ian M. Banks, though, so
Oh wow!
I mean, he's big on his incredibly wacky
Oh, not Ian, no.
concept. Yeah.
Oh, Ian.
Can we go back to an earlier tangent and just all appreciate how beautiful M's hands are? Like, they have the loveliest hands.
Can we see your hands, my love?
Thank you.
Oh,
I really like playing string instruments, and I'm one of those people who, if you give me one, I can fuck around with it enough to be able to like play a little ditty. I won't be able to actually play it or anything. So I guess that's why also when he said that, I was like, oh, I feel like I know how I'd like want that to pull, but I also have a violin in my closet that like I have no idea how to play, but I just like have a violin. So,
Closet violinist.
I've got to admit, I have absolutely no idea what you just said because I was too busy looking at your hands. And you have such beautiful hands and you move them in a really beautiful fashion, says she, flapping wildly. But you have a really kind of delicate fucking whatever the fuck, you know?
thank you. I feel like I just want to have my hands in front of you now. And like, this is
Yeah.
lovely. Wow. Thanks, guys.
Oh, these? Oh, no, surely you don't mean these old things.
Wasn't someone like doing amazing hand gestures in poetry time the other day? Was it Elle?
Elle. It was fucking Elle. I was talking to them about this today. We finally video chatted one-on-one, and it was wonderful. We talked for like 2 hours and ended up talking about poetry and reading to each other. And yeah, I was talking to them about their hair.
So cool. That's so cool. Did you know Elle before, or did you just meet them through?
Just like through Storytime and Poetry Time. And for the record, this is the second person like that for me. Ben and I also chat, who I met at Poetry and Storytime. So yeah, bringing people together, Frankie. Thanks for the friends.
It's story time.
It's story time.
Story time. Is Kitty back? Is Kitty back? Yay! Okay, let's see.
What are you eating, Kitty?
It's a cookie. I warmed it up in the microwave. It's
Awesome.
basically just fudge. It's fucking great.
Hi, Andrada. Hi, Robert.
Kitty
Hi,
baked one.
people too.
It's great.
Tabby. I want to make sure I say hello to everybody. Okay, so I think we don't have a Gordon and Mike Cox tonight. They will be watching on catch up. So hello to you guys in advance when you are catching up.
And this is our last story time for a week.
11 days. We're going to have 11 hours of story time to catch up on.
That is dedication. Are you like? I'm so delighted you're here, but why are you like joining for this book when you are signing yourself up to 11 hours of catch up?
Because I love the book.
And we also recently listened to this book. So
Yeah, one of the reasons Nick was pushing for this book to be next was so that he wouldn't have to wait in suspense not knowing what would happen while we were away.
very selfish.
Oh, I see. You come into my house, you eat my food, you abuse my trust.
We would love to come into your house, eat your food, and abuse your trust.
Be my guest. Right. Now, story time. Okay. So, we've got a slightly shorter session today, which I think is not necessarily a bad thing. But I think it's going to be hopefully a nice one. I'll find out some stuff. Oh, we do have is that a new Michael? Is that a Michael? Hi, Michael. Hi, Ethan. That's right. Hello. Now, are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. Plots turned out to be like Plume, but it was worse because it was bigger. The rain started again as they marched into the cobbled square. It looked as though it always rained here. The buildings were grey and mud-spattered near the ground. Roof gutters overflowed, pouring rain onto the cobbles and sending a spray over the recruits. There was no one about. Polly saw open doors banging in the wind and bits of debris in the streets and remembered the lines of hurrying people on the road. There was no one here. Sergeant Jackram climbed down from the cart as Strappy bawled them into line. Then the sergeant took over, leaving the corporal to glower from the sidelines. "This is wonderful plots," he said. "Have a look round so that if you was killed and goes to hell, it won't come as a shock. You'll be bivvying in that barracks over there, what is military property." He waved a hand towards a crumbling stone building that looked about as military as a barn. "You will be issued with your equipment, and tomorrow it's a nice long march to Crotts, where you will arrive as boys and leave as men. Did I just say something funny, Perks?" "No, I thought so too." "Attention, that means stand up straight." "That's straight," yelled Strappy. A young man was riding across the square on a tired, skinny brown horse, which was quite suitable because he was the tired, skinny man. The skinniness was helped by the fact that he wore a tunic which had clearly been made for someone a couple of sizes larger. The same applied to his helmet. He must have padded it, Polly thought. One cough and it'll be over his eyes. Sergeant Jackram snapped off a salute as the officer approached. "Jackram, sir. You'll be Lieutenant Blouse, sir. Well done, Sergeant. These are the recruits from upriver, sir. Fine body of men, sir. The rider peered at the squad. He actually leaned forward over the horse's neck, causing rain to pour off his helmet. This is all, Sergeant? Yes, sir. Most of them look very young, said the lieutenant, who didn't look very old. Yes, sir. And isn't that one a troll? Yes, sir. Well spotted, sir. And the one with stitches all around his head? He's an Igor, sir. Sort of like a special clan up in the mountains, sir. They fight? Can take a man apart very quickly, sir, as I understand it, said Jackram, his expression not changing. The young lieutenant sighed. Well, I'm sure they're all good fellows, he said. Now then, men, I... Pay attention and listen to what the lieutenant has to say, bawled Strappy. The lieutenant shuddered. Thank you, Corporal, he said. Men, I have good news, he added in the voice of one who hasn't. You're probably expecting a week or two in the training camp in Crotts, yes? But I'm glad to be able to tell you that the war is progressing so well that you are to go directly to the front. Polly heard one or two gasps and a snigger from Corporal Strappy. All of you are to go to the lines, said the lieutenant. That includes you too, Corporal. Your time for action has come at last. The snigger stopped. Sorry, sir, said Strappy. The front? But you know that I'm... Well, you know about the special duties. My orders said all able-bodied men, Corporal, said Blouse. I expect that you'll be itching for the fray after all these years, eh? A young man like you. Strappy said nothing. However, said the lieutenant, fumbling under his soaking cloak, I do have a package here for you, Sergeant Jackram. A very welcome one, I've no doubt. Jackram took the packet gingerly. Thank you, sir. I'll look at this later on, he began. On the contrary, Sergeant Jackram, said Blouse. Your last recruits should see this, since you are both a soldier and, as it were, a father of soldiers. And so it's only right that they see a fine soldier get his reward. An honourable discharge, Sergeant. Blouse spoke the words as if they had cream and a little cherry on top. Apart from the rain, the only sound now was Jackram's pudgy finger slowly ripping open the package. Oh, he said, like a man in shock. Good. A picture of the Duchess. That's 18 I have now. Oh, and a piece of paper saying it's a medal, so it looks like we've even run out of pot metal now. Oh, and my discharge with a printing of the Duchess's very own signature itself. He turned the packet over and shook it. Not my 3 months back pay, though. 3 loud hurrahs for Sergeant Jackram, said the lieutenant to the rain and wind. Hip, hip, but I thought we needed every man, sir, said Jackram. Judging by all the notes pinned on that packet, it has been following you around for years, Sergeant, said Blouse. You know the military. That is your official discharge, I am afraid. I cannot rescind it. I am sorry. But, Jackram began, it bears the Duchess's signature, Sergeant. Will you argue with that? I said I am sorry. In any case, what would you do? We will not be sending out any more recruiting parties. What? But we always need men, sir, Jackram protested. And I'm fit and well again, got the stamina of a horse. You were the only man to return with the recruits, Sergeant. That is how the matter is. The sergeant hesitated for a moment and then saluted. Yes, sir. Very good, sir. We'll see the new lads settled in, sir. Pleasure to have served, sir. Can I ask something? Said Maledict. You do not address an officer directly, Private, snapped Jackram. No, let the man speak, Sergeant, said the lieutenant. These are unusual times, after all. Yes, my man. Did I hear you say we're going into battle without training, sir? Oh, well, most of you will almost certainly be pikemen, said the lieutenant nervously. Not a lot of training there, eh? You just need to know which end is which. He looked as though he wanted to die. Pikemen, said Maledict, looking puzzled. You heard the lieutenant, Private Maledict, snapped the sergeant. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, said Maledict, stepping back into the ranks. Are there any more questions? Said Blouse, looking along the line. Jolly good, then. We leave by the last boat at midnight. Carry on, Sergeant, for now. What was the other thing? Oh, yes, and I shall need a batman. Volunteers to be the lieutenant's batman, step forward. Not you, Private Maledict, snapped the sergeant. No one moved. Oh, come now, said the lieutenant. Polly slowly raised a hand. What's a batman, sir? The sergeant grinned mirthlessly. Fair question, he said. A batman is like a personal servant who takes care of the officer, fetches his meals to him, sees he's smartly turned out, that style of thing, so that he's free to perform his duties more adequately. Igor stepped forward. Igor the youth to service, Sergeant, he said. Using the amazing powers of deafness and restricted vision, sometimes available even to the most nervous officers, the lieutenant appeared not to notice him. He looked fixedly at Polly. What about you, Private? He said. Private Perks used to work in a bar, sir, the sergeant volunteered. Capital. Report to my quarters in the inn at 6, Private Perks. Carry on, Sergeant. As the skinny horse staggered away, Sergeant Jackram directed his glare at the squad, but there was no real fire to it. He appeared to be operating on automatic, with his mind elsewhere. Don't just stand there trying to look pretty. There's uniforms and weapons inside. Get kitted up. If you want grub, cook it yourself. At the double, dismiss. The squad dashed for the barracks, propelled by sheer volume. But Polly hesitated. Corporal Strappy hadn't moved since the snigger had been cut short. He was staring blankly at the ground. You all right, Corporal? She said. You go away, Parts, said the corporal in a low voice that was much worse than his normal petulant shout. Just go away, all right? She shrugged and followed the others, but she had noticed the steaming dampness round the corporal's feet. There was chaos inside. The barracks was really just one large room which did duty as mess, assembly room and kitchen, with big bunk rooms beyond it. It was empty and well on the way to decay. The roof leaked, the high windows were broken, dead leaves had blown in and lay around on the floor among the rat droppings. There were no pickets, no sentries, no people. There was a big pot boiling on the sooty hearth, though, and its hiss and seethe were the only liveliness in the place. At some point, part of the room had been set up as a kind of quartermaster's store, but most of the shelves were empty. Polly had expected some sort of queue, some kind of order, possibly someone handing out little piles of clothes. What there was instead was a rummage stall. Very much like a rummage stall, in fact, because nothing on it appeared to be new and little on it appeared to be worth having. The rest of the squad were already pouring through what might have been called merchandise, if there was any possibility that anyone could be persuaded to buy it. What's this? One size doesn't fit anyone? This tunic's got blood on it. Blood? Well, it is one of the stubborn stains. It's always very hard to get it out without. Where's the proper armour? Oh no, there's an arrow hole in this one. What this? Nothing fits a troll. A small, leathery old man was at bay behind the table, cowering under the ferocity of Maledict's glare. He wore a red uniform jacket done up badly, with a corporal's stripes, stained and faded, on the sleeve. The left breast was covered in metals. One arm ended in a hook. One eye was covered by a patch. We're going to be pikemen, the lieutenant said the vampire. That means a sword and pike per man, right? And a shield if there's an arrow storm, right? And a heavy helmet, right? Wrong. You can't yell at me like that, said the man. See these medals? I'm a... A hand descended from above and lifted him over the table. Carver Underham held the man close to his face and nodded. Yeah, can see him, mister, he rumbled. And? The recruits had fallen silent. Put him down, Carver Underham, said Polly. Gently. Why? He's got no legs. The troll focused. Then, with exaggerated care, he lowered the old soldier to the ground. There were a couple of little tapping sounds as the 2 wooden legs touched the planking. "Sorry about that," he said. The little man steadied himself against the table and shuffled his arms round a couple of crutches. "All right," he said gruffly. "No harm done, but watch here another time." "But this is ridiculous," said Maledict, turning to Polly and waving a hand at the heap of rags and bent metal. "You couldn't equip 3 men out of this mess. There's not even any decent boots." Polly looked along the length of the table. "We're supposed to be well equipped," she said to the one-eyed man. "We're supposed to be the finest army in the world. That's what we're told. Aren't we winning?" The man looked at her. Inside, she stared at herself. She hadn't meant to speak out like that. "So they say," he said in a blank kind of way. "And what do you say?" said Wazza. He picked up one of the few swords. It was stained and notched. The corporal glanced up at Carborundum and then at Maledict. "I'm not so stupid, you know," Wazza went on, red in the face and trembling. "All this stuff is offered to dead men." "That's a shame to waste good boots," the man began. "We're the last ones, aren't we?" said Wazza. "The last recruits." The peg-legged corporal eyed the distant doorway and saw no relief heading in his direction. "We've got to stay here all night," said Maledict. "Night," he went on, causing the old corporal to wobble on his crutches, "when who knows what evil flits through the shadows, dealing death on silent wings, seeking a hapless victim who—" "Yeah, all right, I did see your ribbon," said the corporal. "Look, I'm closing up after you've gone. I just run the stores, that's all. That's all I do, honest. I'm on 1/10 pay me on account of the leg situation, and I don't want trouble." "And this is all you've got?" said Maledict. "Don't you have a little something put by?" "Are you saying I'm dishonest?" said the corporal hotly. "Let's say I'm open to the idea that you might not be," said the vampire. "Come on, corporal, you said we're the last to go. What are you saving up? What have you got?" The corporal sighed and swung with surprising speed over to a door, which he unlocked. "You better come and look," he said, "but it's not good." It was worse. They found a few more breastplates, but one was sliced in half and another was one big dent. A shield was in 2 pieces too. There were bent swords and crushed helmets, battered hats and torn shirts. "I've done what I can," sighed the corporal. "I haven't stuffed out and washed out the clothes, but it's been weeks since I had any coal for the forge, and you can't do nothing about the swords without a forge. It's been months since I got any new weapons, and let me tell you, since the dwarves buggered off, the steel we've been getting is crap anyway." He rubbed his nose. "I know you think quartermasters are a thieving bunch, and I won't say we might not skim a bit off the top when things are going well, but this stuff, the beetle couldn't make a living off this." He sniffed again. "Ain't been paid in 3 months neither. I guess 1/10 of nothing is not as bad as nothing, but I never was that good at philosophy." Then he brightened up. "Got plenty to eat, at least," he said. "If you like horse, that is. Personally, I prefer rat, but there's no accounting for taste." "I can't eat horse," said Shufty. "Oh, you be a rat man," said the corporal, leading the way out of the room. "No." "You'll learn to be one. You'll all learn," said the little 1/10 corporal with an evil grin. "Ever eaten scubbo? No? Nothing like a bowl of scubbo when you're hungry. You can put anything in scubbo. Pork, beef, mutton, rabbit, chicken, duck, anything. Even rats if you've got 'em. It's food for the marching man, scubbo. Got some on the boil out there right now. You can have some of that if you like." The squad brightened up. "Found good," said Igor. "What's in it?" "Boiling water," said the corporal. "It's what we call blind scubbo. But there's going to be some old horse in a minute, unless you've got something better. Could do with some seasonings at least. Who's looking after the Rupert?" They looked at one another. The corporal sighed. "The officer," he explained. "They're all called Rupert or Rodney or Tristram or something. They get better grub than you do. You could try scrounging something at the inn." Scrounge, said Polly. The old man rolled his one eye. Yeah, scrounge, scrounge, Nick, have a lend of, borrow, thieve, lift, acquire, purloin. That's what you'll learn if you're going to survive this war, which they say we're winning, of course. Always remember that. He spat vaguely in the direction of the fire, possibly missing the cooking pot only by accident. Yeah, and all the lads I see coming back down the road, walking hand in hand with death, they probably overdid the celebrating, eh? So easy to take your hand right off if you open a bottle of champagne the wrong way, eh? I see you've got an eagle with you, you lucky devils. Wish we'd had one when I went off to battle. I wouldn't be kept awake by a woodworm if we had. We have to steal our food, said Maledict. No, you can starve if that takes your fancy, said the corporal. I've starved a few times. There's no future in it. Ate a man's leg when we were snowed up in the Iblestone campaign, but fair's fair, he ate mine. He looked at their faces. Well, it's not on, is it, eating your own leg? You'll probably go blind. You swapped legs, said Polly, horrified. Yeah, me and Sergeant Housegood. It was his idea. Sensible man, the sergeant. That kept us alive for the week, and by then the relief had got through. We were certainly relieved about that. Oh dear, where's my manners? How do you do, lads? My name's Corporal Scallot. They call me Three Parts. He held out his hook. But that's cannibalism, said Tonka, backing away. No, it's not. Not officially. Not unless you eat a whole person, said Three Parts Scallot levelly. Military rules. All eyes turned to the big pot bubbling on the fire. Horse, said Scallot. I ain't got nothing but horse, I told you. I wouldn't lie to you, boys. Now, keep yourself up with the best you can find. What's your name, Stone Man? Carborundum, said the troll. Got a wee bit of decent snacking anthracite saved up at the back then, and some official red paint for you, 'cause I never yet met a troll that wanted to wear a jacket. The rest of you, mark what I'm telling you. Fill up with grub. Fill your pack with grub. Fill your shaker with grub. Fill your boots with soup. If any of you run across a pot of mustard, you hang on to it. It's amazing what mustard will help down. And look after your mates. And keep out of the way of officers, 'cause they ain't healthy. That's what you learn in the army. The enemy don't really want to fight you, 'cause the enemy is mostly blokes like you who want to go home with all their bits still on. But officers will get you killed. Scallot looked round at them. There, I've said it. And if there's a political amongst you, mister, you can go and tell tales and to hell with you. After a few moments of embarrassed silence, Polly said, What's political? Like a spy, only on your own side, said Maledict. That's right, said Scallot. There's one in every battalion these days, snitching on their mates. Get promotion that way, see? Don't want dissent in the ranks, eh? Don't want to talk loose talk about losing battles, right? Which is a load of bloody clodgies, 'cause the infantry grumbles all the time. Moaning is part of being a soldier. He sighed. Anyway, there's a bunkhouse out the back. I beats the palliasses regular, so there's probably not too many fleas. Once again, he looked at blank faces. That straw mattress is to you. Go on, help yourselves. Take what you like. I'm closing up after you've gone anyway. We must be winning now. You rattling lads are joining, right? The clouds had broken when Polly stepped out into the night, and a half-moon filled the world with cold silver and black. The inn opposite was another rubbishy alehouse for selling bad beer to soldiers. It stank of ancient slops even before she opened the door. The sign was flaked and unrecognisable, but she could read the name. The world turned upside down. She pushed open the door. The smell got worse. There were no customers and no sign of Strappy or Jackram, but Polly did see a servant methodically spreading the inn's dirt evenly across the floor with a mop. Excuse me, she began, and then, remembering the socks, raised her voice and tried to sound angry. Hey, where's the lieutenant? The servant looked at her and gestured up the stairs with a thumb. There was only one candle alight up there, and she knocked on the nearest door. "Enter." She entered. Lieutenant Blouse was standing in the middle of the floor in his breeches and shirt sleeves, holding a sabre. Polly was no expert in these matters, but she thought she recognised the stylish, flamboyant pose as the one beginners tend to use just before they're stabbed through the heart by a more experienced fighter. "Ah, Perks, isn't it?" he said, lowering the blade. "Just limbering up." "Yes, sir." "There's some laundry in the bag over there. I expect someone in the inn will do it. What's for supper?" "I'll check, sir." "What are the men having?" "Scubbo, sir," said Polly. "Possibly with Then bring me some, will you? We are at war, after all, and I must show an example to my men," said Blouse, sheathing the sword at the third attempt. "That would be good for morale." Polly glanced at the table. A book lay open on the top of a pile of others. It looked like a manual of swordsmanship, and the page it was open at was page 5. Beside it was a thick-lensed pair of spectacles. "Are you a reading man, Perks?" said Blouse, closing the book. Polly hesitated. But then, what did Ozzer care? "A bit, sir," she admitted. "I suspect I shall have to leave most of these behind," he said. "Do take one if you want it." He waved a hand at the books. Polly read the titles. "The Craft of War," "Principles of Engagement," "Battle Studies," "Tactical Defence." "All a bit heavy for me, sir," she said. "Thanks all the same." "Tell me, Perks," said Blouse, "are the recruits in good spirits?" He gave her a look of apparently genuine concern. He really did have no chin, she noticed. His face just eased its way into his neck without much to disturb it on the way, but his Adam's apple, now that was a champion. It went up and down his neck like a ball on a spring. Polly had been soldiering for only a couple of days, but already an instinct had developed. In summary, it was this: lie to officers. "Yes, sir," she said. "Getting everything they need?" The aforesaid instinct weighed the chances of their getting anything more than they'd got already as a result of their complaint, and Polly said, "Yes, sir." "Of course, it is not up to us to question our orders," said Blouse. "Wasn't doing so, sir," said Polly, momentarily perplexed. "Even though at times we might feel," the lieutenant began, and started again. "Obviously, warfare is a very volatile thing, and the tide of battle can change in a moment." "Yes, sir," said Polly, still staring. The man had a small spot where his spectacles had rubbed on his nose. The lieutenant seemed to have something on his mind too. "Why did you join up, Perks?" he said, groping on the table and finding his spectacles on the third attempt. He had woolen gloves on, with the fingers cut out. "Patriotic duty, sir," said Polly promptly. "You lied about your age?" "No, sir." "Just patriotic duty, Perks?" There were lies, and then there were lies. Polly shifted awkwardly. "Would quite like to find out what's happened to my brother Paul, sir," she said. "Ah, yes." Lieutenant Blouse's face, not a picture of happiness to begin with, suddenly bore a hunted look. "Paul Perks, sir," Polly prompted. "I'm not really in a position to know, Perks," said Blouse. "I was working as I was in charge of, I was engaged in special work back at headquarters. Obviously, I don't know all the soldiers, Perks. Older brother, is he?" "Yes, sir. Joined the in and outs last year, sir." "And have you any younger brothers?" said the lieutenant. "No, sir." "Ah, well, that's something to be thankful for, at any rate," said Blouse. It was a strange thing to say. Polly's brow wrinkled in puzzlement. "Sir?" she said. And then she felt an unpleasant sensation of movement. Something was slipping slowly down the inside of her thigh. "Anything the matter, Perks?" said the lieutenant, catching her expression. "No, sir. Just a bit of cramp, sir. All the marching, sir." She clamped both hands around one knee and edged backwards towards the door. "I'll just go and see to your supper, sir." Yes, yes, said Blouse, staring at her leg. Yes, please. Polly paused outside the door to pull her socks up, retucked the end of one under her belt as an anchor, and hurried down to the inn's kitchens. A look told her all she wanted to know. Food hygiene here consisted of making a half-hearted effort not to gob in the stew. I want onions, salt, pepper, she began. The maid, who was stirring the soot-black pot on the soot-black stove, glanced up, realised she'd been addressed by a man, and hastily pushed her damp hair out of her eyes. It's stew, sir, she announced. I don't want any. I just want the stuff, said Polly. For the officer, she added. The kitchen maid pointed a soot-blackened thumb to a nearby door and gave Polly what she probably thought was a saucy grin. I'm sure you can have anything that takes your fancy, sir, she said. Polly glanced at the 2 shelves that had been dignified by the name of pantry and grabbed a couple of large onions, one in each hand. May I? She said. Oh, sir, giggled the maid. I do hope you're not one of them coarse soldiers who take advantage of a helpless maiden, sir. No, I'm not one of them, said Polly. Oh. This didn't seem to be the right answer. The maid put her head on one side. Have you had much to do with young women, sir? She said. Yes. Quite a lot, actually, said Polly. Lots, really. Really? The maid drew closer. She smelled mostly of sweat tinged with soot. Polly raised the onions as a kind of barrier. I'm sure there's things you'd like to learn, the maid purred. I'm sure there's something you wouldn't, said Polly, and turned and ran. As she made it out into the cold night air, a plaintive voice behind her called out, I'm off at 8 o'clock. 10 minutes later, Corporal Scallot was impressed. Polly got the feeling this did not happen often. Shufti had wedged an old breastplate beside the fire, had hammered some slabs of horse meat until they were tender, dipped them in some flour, and was frying them. The sliced onions sizzled next to them. I always just boil them, said Scallot, watching him with interest. You just lose all the flavour if you do that, said Shufti. Hey, lad, the stuff I've ate, you wouldn't want to taste it. So taste stuff first, especially the onions, Shufti went on. Proves the flavour. Anyway, when you boil, you ought to boil slow. That's what me mum always says. Roast fast, boil slow, okay? This isn't bad meat, of course. Shame to boil it. Amazing, said Scallot. We could have done with you in Ibelstown. The Sarge was a good man, but a bit, tough in the leg. A marinade would probably have helped, said Shufti absently, flipping over a slice of meat with a broken sword. He turned to Polly. Was there any more stuff in the lardars? I can make up some stock for tomorrow if we can. I'm not going in that kitchen again, said Polly. Oh, that'd be Round Eel's Molly, said Corporal Scallot, looking up and grinning. She sent many a lad on his way rejoicing. He dipped a ladle in the boiling scobo pot next to the pan. Disintegrated grey meat seethed in a few inches of water. That'll do for the Rupert, he said, and picked up a stained bowl. Well, he did say he wanted to eat what the men eat, said Polly. That kind of officer, said Scallot uncharitably. Yeah, some young ones try that stuff if they've been reading the wrong books. Some of them tries to be friends, the bastards. He spat expertly between the 2 pans. Wait till he tries what the men eat. But if we're having steak and onions... No thanks to the likes of him, said the corporal, lading the slurry into the bowl. The Slovenian troops get 1 pound of beef and a pound of flour a day minimum, plus fat pork or butter and half a pound of peas. A pint of molasses sometimes too. We get stale horse bread and what we can scrounge. He'll have scubbo and like it. No fresh vegetables, no fruit, said Shufti. That's a very binding diet, Corp. Yeah, well, once battle commences, I reckon you'll find constipation's the last thing on your mind, said Scallot. He reached up, pushed some rags aside, and pulled down a dusty bottle from a shelf. Rupert's not having none of this neither, he said. Got it off of the baggage of the last officer that went through, but I'll share it with you, 'cause you's good lads. He casually knocked the top of the bottle off against the edge of the chimney. It's only sherry, but it'll make you drunk. Thanks, Corp, said Shufty, and took the bottle. He sloshed a lot over the sizzling meat. Hey, that's good drink you're wasting, said Scarlet, making a grab for it. No, it'll spice up the meat a fair treat, said Shufty, trying to hang on to the bottle. It'll... sugar. Half the liquid had gone on the fire as the two hands fought for it, but that wasn't what had felt like a small steel rod shooting through Polly's head. She looked round at the rest of the squad, who didn't appear to have... Maledict winked at her and made a tiny gesture with his head towards the other end of the room and strolled in that direction. Polly followed. Maledict always found something to lounge against. He relaxed in the shadows, looked up at the rafters and said, Now, I say a man who knows how to cook is no less of a man for that, but a man who says sugar when he swears. Have you ever heard a man say that? You haven't, I can tell. So it was you who gave me the socks, thought Polly. You know about me, I can tell you do. But do you know about Lofty? And maybe Shufty was very politely brought up. But one look at Maledict's knowing smile made her decide not to try that road. Besides, the moment you looked at Shufty with the idea that maybe he was a girl, you saw that he was. No man would say sugar. 3 girls now. And I'm pretty sure about Lofty, too, said Maledict. What are you going to do about them? She said. Do? Why should I do anything about anyone? Said Maledict. I'm a vampire, officially pretending not to be one, right? I'm the last person who'll say anyone has to play the hand they were dealt. So good luck to him, say I. But you might like to take him aside later on and have a word with him. You know, man to man. Polly nodded. Was there a knowingness to that comment? I'd better go and take the lieutenant to Scubbo, she said. And blast it, I forgot about his laundry. Oh, I wouldn't worry about that, old chap, said Maledict, and flashed a little smile. The way things are going around here, Igor's probably a washerwoman in disguise. Polly did the laundry in the end. She wasn't sure that she'd be able to dodge Molly a second time, and there wasn't that much of it. Afterwards, she hung it in front of the fire, which was roaring. The horse had been surprisingly good, but not as surprising as Blouse's reaction to the Scubbo. He had sat there in his evening dress uniform, wearing special clothes just to sit down and eat all by yourself was a new one on Polly, and had yummed it up and sent her back with a bowl for more. The meat had been boiled white and there was scum on the top. The squad wondered what kind of life an officer could have led that inclined him to like Scubbo. Don't know much about him, said Scarlet upon questioning. He's been here 2 weeks, fretting to get to the war. Brought a whole cartload of books with him, I heard. Looks like a typical Rupert to me. They were all by the door when the chins were handed out. A sergeant who went through said he's not really a soldier at all, just some wonk from headquarters that's good at sums. Oh, great, said Maledict, who was brewing his coffee by the fire. The little engine gurgled and hissed. I don't think he can see very well without his glasses, said Polly. But he's very polite. Not been a Rupert for long, then, said Scarlet. They're more, here there, you, damn your eyes, fwa, fwa, fwa. I've seen your sergeant before, though, old Jackram. Been everywhere he has. Everybody knows old Jackram. He was with us up in the snow at Ibblestan. How many people did he eat? Said Maledict to general laughter. The dinner had been good, and there had still been enough sherry for a glass each. Let's just say I heard he didn't come down much thinner than he went up, said Scarlet. And Corporal Strappy? Said Polly. Never seen him before either, said Scarlet. Cross-grained little bugger. Political, I'd say. Why has he gone and left you here? Got a nice cushy bed in the inn, has he? I hope he's not going to be our sergeant, said Wazza. Him? Why? Said Scarlet. Polly volunteered the events of earlier in the evening. To her surprise, Scarlet laughed. They're trying to get rid of the old bugger again, are they? He said. That's a laugh. Bless you, it'll take more than a bunch of Gawains and Rodneys to leave a Jackram out of his own army. Why, he's been court-martialed twice. He got off both times.
And you know, he once saved General Frock's life. He's been everywhere, got the goods on everyone, knows more strings than me, and I know a good few, mark my words. If he wants to march with you tomorrow, he will, and no skinny little Rupert will get in his way.
So what was a man like that doing as a recruiting officer? Said Maledict sharply.
'Cause he got his leg cut open in Slovenia and bit the sawbones who tried to look at it when the wound went bad, clever Dick, retorted Scarlet. Cleaned it out himself with maggots and honey, then drank a pint of brandy and sewed himself up and lay on his bed with a fever for a week. But the general got him, I heard, came and visited him while he was too weak to protest and told him he was to go on drumming for a year and no argument. Not even Frock himself would hand him his papers, not after Jackram had carried him on his back for 14 miles through enemy lines.
The door swung open and Sergeant Jackram walked in, tucking his hands into his belt. Don't bother to salute, lads, he said as they turned guiltily. Evening, 3 parts. Nice to see nearly all of you again, you artful old god dodger. Where's Corporal Strappy? Haven't seen him all evening, Sarge, said Maledict. Didn't he come in here with you? No, Sarge. We thought he was with you. Not a muscle moved on Jackram's face. I see, he said. Well, you heard the lieutenant. The boat leaves at midnight. We should be well down the neck by Wednesday's dawn. Get a few hours' sleep if you can. Tomorrow's going to be a long day, if you're lucky. And with that, he turned and went out again. Wind howled outside and was cut off when the door shut. We'll be well down the neck, Polly noted. Well done, 3 parts.
Missing a corporal, said Scarlet. Now, there's the thing. Usually it's a recruit that goes AWOL. Well, you heard the sergeant, boys. Time to wash up and turn in.
There was a washroom and latrine in a rough and ready fashion. Polly found a moment when she and Shufti were alone in it. She'd racked her brains about how best to raise the subject, but as it turned out, just a look was all it took. It was when I volunteered to do the supper, wasn't it? Shufti mumbled, staring into the sown stink, which had moss growing in it. That was a clue, yes, said Polly. A lot of men cook, you know, said Shufti hotly. Yes, but not soldiers, and not enthusiastically, said Polly. They don't do marinades. Have you told anybody? Mumbled Shufti, red in the face. No, said Polly, which was, after all, strictly true. Look, you were good. You had me fooled right up until sugar. Yes, I know, Shufti whispered. I can do the belching and the walking stupidly, even the nose-picking, but I wasn't brought up to swear like you men. Us men, thought Polly. Oh boy. We're the coarse and licentious soldiery. I'm afraid it's shit or bust, she said. Why are you doing this? Shufti stared into the dank stone sink as if strange green slime was really interesting and mumbled something. Sorry, what was that? Said Polly. Going to find my husband, said Shufti, only a little bit louder. Oh dear. How long had you been married? Said Polly without thinking. Not married yet, said Shufti in a voice as tall as an ant. Polly glanced down at the plumpness of Shufti. Oh dear, oh dear. She tried to sound reasonable. Don't you think that you should... Don't you tell me to go home, said Shufti, rounding on her. There's nothing for me to go back home except disgrace. I'm not going home. I'm going to the war and I'm going to find him. No one's going to tell me not to, Ozza. No one. This has happened before, anyway, and it ended right. There's a song about it and everything. Oh, that, said Polly. Yes, I know. Folk singers should be shot. What I was going to say was that you might find this helps the disguise. She produced a soft cylinder of woolly socks from her pack and wordlessly handed it over. It was a dangerous thing to do, she knew, but now she was feeling a kind of responsibility to those whose sudden strange fancy hadn't been followed by a plan. On the way back to her palliasse, she caught sight of Wazza hanging his little picture of the Duchess on a handy hook in the crumbling wall above his mattress. He looked around furtively, failed to spot Polly in the shadows of the doorway, and bobbed a very quick curtsy to the picture. A curtsy, not a bow. Polly frowned. 4. She was barely surprised now, and she had 1 pair of clean socks left. This was soon going to be a barefoot army.
Yay! Yay!
How's everyone enjoying it?
I'm really amused that the vampire had coffee. I can really.
I love Maledict so much.
You wait till the vampire doesn't have coffee.
Shh, spoiler. Oh, this is so much fun. I'm really enjoying this.
Yay!
Your quartermaster voice was. There was some dicey moments there when you were getting to the end of a paragraph. It was very aggressive. But you held it together.
I was like, I said the first sentence and immediately thought, oh, I've miscalculated.
Yeah. There were moments when I thought, oh no, she's going to need a breather or she's going to get a hernia. And you like snapped right back into your narrator voice.
I love you, Frankie.
I love you, Katie. This is so good. This is so good. Well done, Terry. Old Tezza.
This is such a great introduction to Terry Pratchett as someone who's only really read Good Omens.
Yeah, I think this is it's less funny, I think, than a lot of kind of the Discworld canon. Like there's definitely humor in it, but it's like the kind of the serious stuff that it's dealing with is dealt with a lot more seriously than I think some of the other kind of Discworld stuff. I would definitely say that this is one of the less humorous books. What do you think, people who have read it? Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, they get, this is I think number 38, and they get a lot less humorous as they go on.
Listen,
The early ones are basically just straight up silliness.
Yeah.
The very earliest worlds, and then
it was like, how can I fuck with all the fantasy staples?
Mm-hmm.
My dad. So I told my dad that we were reading this, and my dad knowing nothing about Rory, I was like, yeah, no, it's one of my friend Rory's favorite books, and Alex read it recently, book form from the library, knowing nothing about it and nothing about Rory and nothing about this book, and my dad's gonna be in for a bit of a political surprise.
Yes, political surprises. Have to let us know how it goes.
Dads and political surprises are particularly a fun thing.
you're going to come back
My
being.
dad loves ridiculous shit, so like it doesn't seem not up his alley.
Is he going to come back being like, yeah, no, I loved it, but it was weird that like Corporal Strappy had so little like presence because he's the protagonist, right? The Ballad of Corporal Strappy.
It's a classic.
Oh my god.
He's, the everyman. He's a real Borogravia.
Oh, just as a quick tangent, because I enjoy sharing what I'm reading with you folks. Can I share what I'm reading at the moment?
Yes, please.
So I have been meaning to read Pale Fire for most of my adult life and haven't got around to it. And now Zach has lent me his copy and I'm really enjoying it. I'm properly enjoying it. And has anyone else read Pale Fire? It's meta and I like that. Like, so the concept of it is that it's purportedly a kind of poem with like commentary, like a poem by this American poet John Shade, who has been murdered, and then kind of like with an introduction and commentary on the text by his sort of friend and colleague, and like as you go through, like as you read the introduction and then read the commentary, you kind of get like elements and bits of like the story of like what's going on and what's happened to this guy, and the like editor who's writing the commentary is just completely unhinged, and it's so good, it's so complex. I'm really enjoying it, and if anybody really enjoys meta, read this, and also read If on a Winter's Night a Traveller by Italo Calvino, and The Athenian Murders by somebody. Meta.
Put them on the list.
That sounds amazing.
That is a great shout. I will put them all on the list. I will find it and put them on with a big thing saying meta.
Hey, you guys are intelligent and well-read people. I have a question for you. Oh, I am looking for like popular science style books on like language and thought. Does anybody have any recommendations about that?
What about language and thought?
Like linguistics and stuff.
Like linguistic, the idea of linguistic determinism and linguistic, what's the other word? Relativism?
Ooh,
I mean,
maybe
if
a
you
bit
want,
of a
like, sorry, go on, Terry.
it may be a bit of a stretch, but do you know Ted Chiang?
No.
He's one of my favorite authors. I just bought the second book. He's got like, okay, Frankie, I already love your face.
As in like exhalation?
Yeah, right. I just bought that. I'm reading that one right now. I would still say get the first one first. I'm just lend it to a friend. I don't have it here right now. Because in the first book there are some short stories where he plays with linguistics and all of Frankie's meta stuff, and it's absolutely brilliant. It's beautifully written. I highly recommend it.
On a completely different note, oh sorry.
What was the name of this?
Ted Chiang, and his second book is called Exhalation. His first book I don't really remember.
It's called Stories of Your Life and Others. And Katie, Rory might have a copy because I think I gave you it.
You did.
Yeah, it's so good.
I think I've lent it to someone else, but yes, yeah, it's super.
I also have another copy, so I can give it to you.
It's the one that has a short story that
Yes.
the film Arrival was based on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've got that book somewhere. Oh, yeah.
Katie, what were you going to say there?
If you want a completely different book about words, which is very, very funny, I would recommend Mother Tongue by Bill Bryson.
Okay.
And it's more about like the history of language and how it how different words are used by different types of people, and how that like affects how they're used, like the ones that have French roots versus the ones that have like other roots, and it's cool. I like it.
I do like Bill Bryson.
If you are at all interested in something that is very specifically food linguistic related, there is a book called what's that, love?
Is it called A Linguist Reads the Menu?
It is.
I've got that on my list already. I'm learning. I'm doing a learning. So yes. Thank you.
It's very good. It's the guy who writes it lives in San Francisco, and in my opinion is occasionally a little bit up his own arse about the fact that he lives in San Francisco. But if you can park that, there's some very, very fascinating stuff about linguistics and food history and things in there.
Nice. This sounds amazing. You guys are so smart. Thank you.
If you want a completely different sort of book, which sort of touches on some of these and is also really well written, Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat by Oliver Sacks.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
You added to the list. Everyone's really enthusiastic, and now I'm like, yes, based on people's reactions, sure, I'll read
Oh, it's
this.
so good. He's like this rogue neurologist. His autobiography is also really great. Who like took loads of drugs and was illegally gay when it was still illegal, and sort of formed these really
Oliver
good
Sacks?
patients, but kept getting fired for like going off on motorcycle trips.
Oh man.
What a life.
Guys, I'm so glad that I don't have to read Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky is intelligent and amazing, but I think that his linguistic writing will be like super heavy.
You should hear him speak. You will pass the fuck out in like 10 seconds. I am literally like, I cannot stay awake for a full lecture of his.
I wish I could.
What if Frankie read a Noam Chomsky lecture? Do you think you could stay awake through that?
What if I read it in my Storytime voice?
Absolutely. But like, Noam Chomsky has this incredible ability to just maintain this monotone, and then eventually will maybe go up a little bit when he's making some point about the definition of state terror, but then we'll
Jesus.
analyze
I
it.
feel
Yeah.
like if you took a piece of writing by, thank you. I feel like if you took a bit of writing from Noam Chomsky and then edited it so that it was a conversation and then performed it in your sexy voices, that maybe would interest me for long enough.
Amazing. I just want more excuses to read in the sexy voices. Can I just, having Oliver Sacks having been mentioned, may I read to you one of my favourite quotes, which is about sort of kind of music and the body and things, which I think I have it somewhere. So this is something that I absolutely love, and I kind of think about quite a lot when I'm like solo dancing, in terms of kind of, you know, sort of your body and thinking about your body and being within your own body. So he's telling a story about when he was off alone on a hike, got injured, and had to kind of like find a way to make his way back when he was injured. So it says, I had no room now for this fear or for any other fear, because I was filled to the brim with music. And even when it was not literally audibly music, there was the music of my muscle orchestra playing, the silent music of the body, in Harvey's lovely phrase. With this playing, the musicality of my motion, I myself became the music. You are the music while the music lasts. A creature of muscle, motion, and music, all inseparable and in unison with each other. Isn't that lush?
Shit.
Post that quote when you post the video tomorrow.
I will.
Write that somewhere to have.
And then for the next event that any of us runs on the Friday night before everyone starts dancing, or in the middle of it, you can just like put that in at the end of the announcements, and then everyone will be like, holy shit, now I feel like moving my body.
No, I want.
When I make electronic music, can I like record your voice saying that and put it into music whenever that eventually happens? I keep saying this enough, so now I'm committed to making it happen.
Like literally, I was about to ask you to do that.
I want to like mix in that with like some Alan Watts lecture for some reason. Yes, weird electronic trippy shit, man.
Oh, hold on, we're still recording. We should say goodbye to the catch-up crew.
Bye, catch-up crew.
Goodbye, catch-up crew.
Bye, catch-up crew.
We love you.